Have you ever watched Adventure Time and thought the typeface in the title card for the Jiggler looks like the one used in the Indiana Jones franchise? Or ever wondered why the font and pose struck in the title card for his hero looks like the poster for 1982's Conan the Barbarian? Or ever noticed the similarities between the title card for What Is Life and the promotional artwork for Pixar's Up? If so, then you've come to the right place. My name is Jacob Daniel Barnes. This is Filmthetics, and today we're going to be taking a look at the graphic design, and in particular the movie posters that inspired the Adventure Time title cards. Hey everyone, welcome to the inaugural episode of Filmthetics, a channel that is dedicated to delving into the inner workings of filmmaking through the lenses of graphic design and movie poster design. The concept for this video really caught me last year at an intersection between diving back into childhood nostalgia while also cultivating this newfound passion for graphic design and movie posters in particular. So I went back to this show as kind of nothing more than a trip down memory lane. But as soon as I started rewatching Adventure Time, I was reminded of why I fell in love with the show in the first place. And that's the fact that across 10 seasons and nearly 300 episodes, every single one of those episodes opens with a title card. And I remember even as a kid being really impressed with the level of intricacy and artistry that was poured into these still frames that showed up for no more than like 4 or 5 seconds in the entire episode. I was always studying those frames, trying to decipher any hidden messages or context into what the episode was going to be, why they chose this font, why they chose that music. And those are sort of the memories that really stuck to me when I think about the show. So I ended up taking almost like an archaeological approach to scrubbing through all of these title cards and really trying to like dig up the bones of, is there any connective tissue here to the filmmaking and graphic design of the past? And ended up finding out that there is a lot to do with graphic design and inspiration from bygone eras of movie making. I learned a lot doing an episode like this, and I hope at least one person learned something new as well. All right, without further ado, here's the video. Roll tape. So this is the first title card that we see in the series for an episode called Slumber Party Panic. Here in the foreground we see these 3 bikini-clad women with these very unorthodox looking dance moves on the shore of this beach. And everything in this frame is painted with these various shades of green except for the words directly overhead written in this bloody red font. In the top right-hand corner, we also see the sticker-looking emblem with a 25-cent mark, which was very reflective more so of magazines and comic book covers. But we also see the word Slumber Party that are written in this very herky-jerky, asymmetrical-looking type that was very reminiscent of movie poster designs from the 1960s. So for some context, there was this subcultural shift that took place between the 1950s and the 1960s, moving away from more serious, somber-toned teen movies of the 50s like Rebel Without a Cause and High School Hellcats. There was this push made in the early to mid-1960s to provide this young demographic with something more lighthearted. And all of a sudden, the teen beach party movie rose to prominence.
Don't miss Gidget, filmed in CinemaScope and an eye full of color. Gidget, the story of the beach generation.
It was actually the same guys that made the B-movie monster flicks of the late 50s that transitioned to making teen beach movies in lieu of their surging popularity. And because of that, you would also find instances where they would combine the 2 genres into a single movie, and that's where this title card really finds its footing. At first glance, this fusion seems counterintuitive, but it actually encapsulated the teenage identity in a way that was more succinct and grounded than any other attempt beforehand. These stories were ones of romance, the pursuit of happiness, and carefree ambition.
7 young beachcombers with a single thought: to enjoy life and love without working.
But they also struck tones of fear and anxiety and discomfort, and in that way, the proverbial creature from the Black Lagoon becomes this effective allegory for life and the transition into adulthood, that this thing is lurking in the shadows and it's right around the corner waiting for you, whether you're ready for it or not. These films represented an entire generation of young people and what they were experiencing, albeit represented through something as cartoonish as a zombie in a conga line, or Frankenstein on a surfboard. To quote directly from the Adventure Time series Bible, the opening line goes, "Adventure Time is about 2 close friends, Jake, a wise old dog with a big, kind heart, and Finn, a silly kid who wants more than anything else to become a hero." This ends up being the perfect base to lay the foundation of your show, that in the midst of an exponentially growing scale and diving into more complex and serious subject matters as the show progresses, the show at its core is the story about a boy and his dog, and it was always about 2 brothers that have each other's backs. And I think this harkens back to the sentiment of the Teen Beach Monster movie, that in this moment we have each other, and the mindset shifts from we have to make the most of this moment to it's actually okay if we make nothing of this moment. In fact, it might actually be preferred, because when's the next time we'll be able to get together and focus on something as frivolous as dancing? Right now, the way I twist or how I perform the Hully Gully is a matter of life and death, and what we are saying is that we intend on keeping it this way for as long as we possibly can, and if it ends up being over my dead body, well then that's okay too. That in the midst of this dreary green filter through which we see life, and the impending panic looming on the horizon, we choose to dance. And to be able to communicate all of that in a single frame and establish your show in that frame is really an impressive accomplishment. We'll also see Slumber Party Panic's influence the further we dive into these title cards, as many more are inspired by the monster flicks of a bygone era, all the way up to the contemporary horror film. Here in the title card for The Silent King, we see this beautifully ornate throne room, and center stage, Finn reclining in this throne, adorned with a crown and a sword. And although the type at the top is superimposed, it almost appears like it was carved from the same stone as one of the pillars or the golden back wall. This 3-dimensional block typing adds a sense of scale and significance, that this is a story important enough to tell, and to do it properly, it has to be grand and authoritative. This is a family of type that is almost exclusively reserved for films that fall under the umbrella of the epic or the historical epic. Films featuring strong lead antagonists and heroes, people who embark on larger-than-life quests, journeys of biblical proportions, and stories that go down in history as nothing short of legendary. A lot of the times these protagonists will even have their name in the title, as in, this is a movie specifically about them. The epic communicates that you are about to witness many amazing things take place, but without the main character, it's almost a story not worth telling. That all of these amazing things wouldn't have even happened had it not been for the heroism of the main character in the first place. And for similar reasons, this sort of protruding font really gained a foothold in comic book design, as almost every cover of every significant hero utilized this leaping, dynamic font, stretching past the boundaries of the page itself, suggesting that the character bearing its namesake was a powerful individual, one that went beyond the capabilities of the ordinary, everyday person. We see this interesting sort of hierarchy within superhero comics, this scale of significance or power, simply through the width of the type that it uses. It's the difference between, say, your AAA ball friendly neighborhood Spider-Man with this very slim drop shadow, suggesting that this is a hero that stays closer to ground level, and this otherworldly Superman, a true one-of-one, faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, and with the ability to leap over tall buildings in a single bound. And with this bold, broad, expanding font, the title itself sort of reciprocates that sentiment. In the Silent King's title card, we see Finn is solely judging from the type, somewhere in the middle on this power spectrum, which is impressive considering that at the time of this episode, he is roughly 12, 13 years old. The title card for Season 2's episode Susan Strong employs this interesting layered text, one script font and one display font, that one might also see from a mid-century noir film. But again, we see this dual text style also in classic comic book covers. The alliteration of the titular character's name, Susan Strong, even harkens back to the superheroes of Marvel and DC Comics. Names like Peter Parker, Reed Richards, Clark Kent, Stephen Strange. In Blood Under the Skin, we have this extreme close-up of a character's face, and superimposed on top of it, this leaking font. The first time looking at this card, it would be very easy to pass over it for something flashier or busier, but this is a card that does one of the better jobs at exhibiting one of my favorite aesthetic concepts, called typographic symbolism. And what typographic symbolism is when a font visually represents the meaning of a word through its shape, style, color, or texture. So here, for instance, we have the word blood presented in this red, dripping font, and in that way, reflecting the properties of blood itself. And psychologically, this evokes a sense of danger, physical harm, or even potentially gore. It helps establish a certain tone before engaging with the actual film. And I think that's pretty cool, that it's not only about the words we use, but how those words are represented. And if done effectively, typographic symbolism can do more to inform you about a particular film or scene than an image ever could. And we see several instances of this through poster design at large. For example, in the same way Blood Under the Skin uses typographic symbolism to communicate peril, this promotional card for the 1966 film Grand Prix uses its italicized type, and this Saul Bass rendition uses its line work to communicate speed, and this poster's staggered type to imply motion. Or the poster for the 1954 film Flame in the Flesh uses this broad, brushed type, in that way representing the properties of a physical flame, which in turn provides us with psychological context as to the burning temptation within the main character's flesh. Additionally, Saul Bass's opening title sequence for the film Seconds is similar as the title superimposes over the close-up of a mouth. I also just really like the title of this episode. I don't know what it is about it, but to me it just really sounds like a proper film noir movie that you would find in the 1940s or 50s. In Belly of the Beast, we see Finn and Jake stowing away in the mouth of this giant creature, with trees and wildlife stuck in its teeth. And a poster that comes to mind when I see this is one for the 1957 film The Black Scorpion. The type is very similar to the one used in the title card, and again we see this large beast with grotesque teeth. This prehistoric creature even looks so much like a character you would find in the Land of Oo that it feels almost like it was extrapolated from Adventure Time and pasted onto this old poster, not the other way around. The type here is so brash and uneven, it's almost as if bite marks have been taken out of the title. And I think this card is a great design in which the title goes above and beyond its job description, which is simply to tell the audience what they are seeing. But here we have a title in a creative way interacting with the image, establishing an overarching tone that not only alludes to what we are viewing, but how we should view that thing. And in this case, it's with shock or fear. Another instance where we see font establishing tone is in Season 3's What Was Missing. The type here looks eerily similar to that of Twin Peaks, giving it this uncanny, something isn't quite right here atmosphere. I mentioned earlier that the type in the title card for The Silent King seemed to be carved from the same blocks that built the palace Finn and Jake are in. Well, the title card for You Made Me is another example of that, where we have Princess Bubblegum in her lab creating lemon grab like he's Frankenstein. And above her, we see this really cool electric hand-drawn font projected as an energy surge between two generators. This is a phenomenal example of diegetic typography where the title isn't superimposed, but rather organically within the scene. We see this in the poster for the Coen brothers' anthological western, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, where the 5 separate stories or vignettes of the film branch off, and the title is formed through the dust trails left behind by the wagons. We also see this in a poster like Old Boy, where the title becomes another neon sign in the cityscape backdrop. And one of my favorite examples of diegetic typography occurs during the title sequence to the film For a Few Dollars More, where the title actually cascades across the desert floor as if it's the shadow of the clouds above. Season 1's What is Life is another example of a diegetic title card, where the jet stream of the plane forms the words in the sky as opposed to simply over the image. You also get this electrical surge type from Season 5's title card Time Sandwich, as well as the opening title sequences to films like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World and Weird Science. While the stencil typeface finds its origins in traditional film noirs, it's most commemorated in genres like action and the political thriller. Here in the title card for Hitman, we see Finn and Jake frolicking through the perspective of a sniper scope, and we see this shot throughout films that touch on subjects such as war, rebellion, secrecy, and surveillance. We also see the scope and target design reflected in the posters of these films, highlighting the main character as a person on the run, or a person on the hunt, or a person in hiding. So Hitman is a fun spin on what we typically see, which are characters who are very stoic or serious, who take every step with exactness and precision. Instead, we see two friends laughing, lollygagging, and swinging their arms with no sense of accuracy or intent, juxtaposed creatively under this icon of precision and accuracy, which is the sniper scope. And Nemesis uses this jagged, retro-styled type that is very similar to one popularized in the 1970s and 80s called New Zelik, created by this man, Polish graphic artist Bronislaw Selik. In my opinion, one of the more fascinating instances of New Zelik being used in film is on the 1986 French re-release poster of the 1946 film noir, The Big Sleep. I think it's really interesting how we can recontextualize a movie made 40 years earlier through the contemporary design of the day. How something as simple as font can transform something old into something new, and all the meanwhile staying the same. From Bad to Worse is another example of a classic monster title card, this time paying homage to zombie films, highlighted through the iconic motif we see across the horror genre, being the undead arm breaching from underneath the ground. And there's no better example of this in poster design, in my opinion, than the one-sheet for Sam Raimi's revolutionary Evil Dead. And The Witch's Garden uses a scraggly, triangular type found in movie posters and comic book covers that emphasize creepiness, the type of fear that makes your skin crawl, as opposed to, say, the gore of a slasher film. In a poster for Stephen King's horror anthology Creepshow, we see a cloaked figure outside the boy's window that holds many similarities to the witch in the title card. They are both represented by this green color scheme. The one eye is featured prominently staring at you while the other is either missing or covered, as well as the protruding hand with the crooked fingers and the teethy expression. You could even draw comparisons between how the boy clutches at his comic book and the way Jake is grabbing at Finn. The Eyes ends up being one of my favorite title cards across the Adventure Time series because it reminds me so much of one of my favorite posters of all time for the 1977 film House, as they both display this wispy, crackling type under the gaze of these piercing, cat-like eyes. The title card for The Lich features Finn and Jake curled up within the craters of the Lich's skull-like eye sockets, almost forming pupils, which reminds me of posters like the German release for the 1965 film The Skull, as well as the infamous poster for Evil Dead 2. Title cards like Love Games and Season 9's Slime Central are based on classic monster movies such as the titular Blob from the 1958 film, or Mothra of Japanese Kaiju in Season 6's title card for On the Lam. Roll credits. So yeah, that was part one of this short series that I have planned on the movie posters that inspired the Adventure Time title cards. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found something interesting about graphic design or art or movie making, or even something, about the Adventure Time show that you maybe didn't know before. I thank you regardless for, even getting this far into the video if you did. So I appreciate you guys. Just a little peek behind the curtain. This is a video that has been in the works for a pretty long time now. I think I've been sitting on these audio files for about a year now at the time that I'm recording this audio file, which I intend to be the outro of this episode. But I think, revisiting this series and this show and this channel that I want to make, I think the reason that I've sat on this video in particular for so long is because I don't know what I'm doing. And I sort of feel like a fish out of water in this world that I engage with pretty regularly as an audience member. But this is my first time ever really adding my voice to the mix. And I think the more I talk out loud and the more that I do stuff like this, then the more I'm going to sort of hone in on my style and sensibilities, what appeals to me and the type of stuff that I want to put out. But in the meantime, it's really pretty experimental and I'm just trying to figure it out. So I really don't know what I'm doing. But in the midst of that, I know that this is something that I want to be doing. So anyway, that was just a real long ramble of I appreciate you guys actually engaging with this, and I hope you found it engaging in return. If any of you guys have a favorite Adventure Time title card from this particular batch or from the show at large, or if you think that I missed something that was worth highlighting in this part 1, or you just want to add to the conversation in general, then I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments below. My hope for this channel is that eventually it can develop into sort of like a home base for different artists and creatives out there that come from a lot of different walks of life and backgrounds and sensibilities and tastes, but sort of all collectively have this passion for art in terms of graphic design and filmmaking and movie poster design. Yeah, I hope this place becomes a home base for a lot of people where they just get to express themselves and their sensibilities and what they find interesting about this stuff. So yeah, in the meantime, I'm just going to continue to make stuff that I personally find interesting. So there's going to be a lot more stuff like this in the future and some different stuff as well. But like I said, we're just sort of figuring it out as time moves on. And yeah, I think that's it. I think I have to cut it off there for no other reason than I'm sort of getting tired of listening to myself. So I seriously cannot thank you guys enough for making it this far into the episode. And I hope to see you guys in part 2, which will be released at some point soon. My name is Jacob Daniel Barnes. You have been watching Filmthetics, and I'll see you guys next time, hopefully. All right, take care.